Welcome to a special 15-year anniversary episode of Stories from the NNI. I'm Lisa Friedersdorf, Director of the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office, or NNCO. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Chuck Geraci, the Associate Director for Emerging Technologies at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH. He is responsible for the planning, direction, and execution of emerging technology research activities at the Institute. He has also worked as Associate Director for Occupational Safety and Health and Coordinator of the Nanotechnology Research Center at NIOSH. Previously, he was the Associate Director for Health, Safety, and the Environment at Procter & Gamble for several years. Chuck, thank you so much for joining us. To get things started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first got involved with nanotechnology?
Well, certainly, Lisa, and it's my pleasure to be here. I got involved in nanotechnology actually prior to joining NIOSH in my last 3 or 4 years at Procter & Gamble, where I was the Associate Director for Global HS&E for Research and Development. We started investigating engineered nanomaterials as consumer product additives, and my job was to help the development engineers understand how to handle them properly and safely. And I joined NIOSH, actually rejoined NIOSH. I've worked there twice in my working career in 2004. And shortly after, I was asked to become involved in the then brand new NIOSH nanotechnology program and became heavily involved in it over the years and have been working it, managing it since about 2005.
As you very well know, the NNI is celebrating its 15-year anniversary. From your perspective, can you share some of the key research advances pursued by NIOSH in the area of nanotechnology?
Yeah, certainly. I think the one area where we've really advanced the science has been in the understanding of the biological behavior of the engineered nanomaterials. We would loosely call that the nanotoxicology. I think NIOSH has done some world-leading research in nanotoxicology and understanding the interactions of these different classes of nanomaterials. And that has really helped us focus and set our priorities on where we need to investigate them in their actual commercial use and in field activities and understanding what's most important to help protect the workers.
So the responsible development of nanotechnology is critical for the protection of the environment and human health. It's also one of the 4 strategic goals of the NNI. You mentioned both the internal research that NIOSH has been conducting and also the field studies. Can you talk a little bit about how you work with industry and what the field studies involves?
Certainly, we learned early on that the most productive way to learn about what's happening with nanomaterial science in both its development and its production was to work very directly with the companies doing the work. To the credit of our Institute Director, Dr. John Howard, we took a collaborative approach on how we were investigating nanomaterials in the field and invited companies to partner with us. It did take a little bit of time for some of these companies to get used to partnering with a government agency, but I think my past industrial experience really helped with that. And so over the years, we've cultivated some very good, very productive working relationships or partnerships with a number of private sector companies, large and small, to help us understand what they're doing, to help them understand how we can contribute to their overall safe use and handling of these materials so that the technology can advance and it can go forward safely without interruptions or adverse events occurring.
I've heard your director, John Howard, say that when a company works with NIOSH, your field team will not identify a problem until they're able to also present a proposed engineering solution. I've heard from a lot of small companies that this approach and support that you've provided is really invaluable. Can you comment on the impact it has on companies' ability to get insurance, on other aspects of development?
Yeah, it's been a very positive experience. because this is a new and emerging material science and technology being used in a variety of manufacturing environments, there are unknowns. But what we said early on was we have a lot of good technical skill and experience that we can apply even to unknown situations. And so we will put that in play when we visit with a company and do what we do best, which is the occupational health and safety practices and designs that will benefit the company. And let's be honest, small companies do not have dedicated resources for health and safety, but they're interested in doing things right. And they do take advantage of our field team's presence to guide them, to provide them counsel, and give them some good guidance. We do an awful lot of training and teaching when we visit these facilities. And what we've learned is that knowledge goes up and down that supply chain.
So nanomaterials are small, they're impossible to see and hard to detect. Can you talk a little bit about the advancements in our ability to identify, detect, measure these materials in different environments?
Well, there have been some good advances, and to be fair to my fellow scientists, measuring small particles is not new to NIOSH. We have a long history in ultrafine particulate exposures, what we would call today non-engineered nanomaterials, going back to diesel particulate and welding fume and environmental emissions. So what we did was we took all the best knowledge that we had gained over the years in those areas and began to refine it to try to answer the question, can you detect and measure a very specific type, size, shape of particle, and use that as a way to determine whether or not there's potential hazard or risk, either to the workers or the environment. So we've made a lot of advances in being able to detect individual particles because of their shape or their size. I'd like to say because of their activity, because that's important, but I think that's in the future. And we've been able to blend our historical knowledge along with some new knowledge that's been gained. We don't have the ultimate engineered nanoparticle detection instrument yet. That might be in the future with all the advances being made in computer technology, but we're certainly in a much better place today than we were 5 or 10 years ago.
So speaking of where we are now compared to where we were 10 or 15 years ago, can you share from your perspective, what is the advancement or research accomplishment that you think is the most critical in this area?
I think the most critical advancement or accomplishment is, number one, a collaborative environment that's been created. Number two, 10 years ago, actually more like 13 or 14 years ago, when NIOSH said, we don't have all the answers, but we have a lot of experience in dealing with emerging issues and technologies. So we're going to develop guidance based on our experience, and we're going to put together a program of research that validates what we're saying based on that experience. And that has really come to be our approach that's been very productive for us. So when we put out our first large guidance document on it, known as Approaches to Safe Nanotechnology, that was in 2005. It's still the most heavily cited risk assessment and management document that's been put out on nanotechnology. And we based that on our historical experience with ultrafine particles, with emerging technologies, with good basic health and safety practices. And we told the world we were going to back that up and validate that with a good program of science. And I think we've done a pretty good job of doing that.
You mentioned researchers in universities and in government labs, and I know that you have a real passion for laboratory safety. Can you comment on where people might be able to find resources that would help them in developing safe practices in the laboratory?
Well, yes, there are multiple sources, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say two key places, nano.gov and the NIOSH website. The American Chemical Society has a very active laboratory health and safety community through a couple of its divisions. The Good Nano Guide is a good resource for people who are looking for basic practices that they can put in place in their laboratories. The Campus Safety, Health, and Management Association, SHEMA, has become more active recently in understanding nanomaterials and other emerging technology issues in laboratories. So there are good resources available. The challenge is connecting those resources with the principal investigators, with the researchers, and even with the campus health and safety officials. So NIOSH really takes a look at it from our perspective of we are the experts in health and safety. We've done a lot in this area, and so we have a lot of good information to share. So we continue to work through a variety of channels to put the message out on laboratory health and safety.
So you've mentioned interactions with other agencies, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the ecosystem that has been established under the NNI, and how has that facilitated collaboration both with other government organizations and more broadly?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting journey. In the early days of the NNI, especially the NEHI working group, which I'm happy to say NIOSH was a founding partner of, we've moved in a very good and productive way from being what I used to call competitors. We were competing for funding. We were competing for attention. We were competing for presence. We've now moved into truly being collaborators. We have recognized the value of interagency collaboration, interagency project sharing, even interagency exchanging and supporting in the way of funding. So the NNI NEHI experience has been very productive. It's given all of the agencies a platform for collaboration. And I think it proves that that collaboration can be very productive. And I tell other initiatives that I sit on that within the NNI, the NEHI collaboration could serve as a great model for all the other agencies.
Looking toward the future of nanotechnology, application of nanomaterials, where do you see the biggest impact that nanomaterials will have on solving world problems?
Well, it's going to be in a variety of arenas. I think the advances that we're seeing in medicine in general are kind of amazing because of our better understanding of material, both biological and non-biological material science, and our ability to manipulate materials and control reactivities and interactions. So I think medicine will probably be the greatest beneficiary of this new age of material science. But some of the other social needs, I think, will be met. Water and water purification, just overall environmental remediation. There is a solution in nanomaterials and nanotechnology. Computing has already seen great benefit from nanotechnology. From my own perspective of worker health and safety, the advances being made in sensor and sensing technology should give us the ability to do better interventions when there's a need to do so for worker health and safety. So I think there's a variety of different great beneficiaries that I see coming out of this current modern day approach to material science.
So I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. Do you have any closing thoughts that you would like to share with the listeners?
I would just say that nanomaterial science, nanotechnology has been a great adventure. It's been a compressed adventure. There's been so much done just in the last 15 years in nanotechnology. It makes the last 30 years of my working career seem like a flash, but it's very exciting. And I always encourage students, especially, to explore nanotechnology, but also the applications of nanotechnology if they are interested in health, safety, and environment, and that it could be a very rewarding career for them.
Thank you for joining us today for this special 15-year anniversary edition of Stories from the NNI. If you would like to learn more about nanotechnology, please visit nano.gov or email us at info@nnco.nano.gov. And check back here for more stories.